Welcome into Inside LAFC podcast. Hope you're enjoying your Monday as we dig into all things black and gold. I am Max Bretos. There is Benny Feilhaber. How are things, Benny?
Things are good. They could have been better, but we'll make this Monday a hopeful one for this upcoming week.
There it is. There it is. We are. We know there's going to be good weeks. There's going to be some okay weeks. There's going to be some not so great weeks. But we're not running from anything, and we're here. We're going to open up the discourse. We are live every Monday at 12:30 Pacific time on LAFC YouTube and LAFC Facebook. We encourage you to jump in like our good friend Philly just did, saying hello to Benny and myself. Ask questions. We're an open book, and we will talk about it as we look back at what LAFC is doing and previewing the days ahead. Should be known that there will be no midweek game. LAFC are through. That's the good news through all of this. LAFC, the important thing in the early season is to get through in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. They are there in the quarterfinals, and they will be awaiting Inter Miami. A little bit of news, and it does apply to those games. Lionel Messi will not be with the Argentine national team. This, according to Fabrizio Romano, at least that's where I saw the news. Will not be with the Argentine national this team this week for games in Uruguay and Brazil. Getting ready, I hope, because he did play yesterday in the win over Atlanta. Getting ready perhaps for that Titanic match on April the 2nd. But we got to face it head on here. It was a tough day at the office, at home, afternoon game for LAFC as they took on Austin FC. This was coming off a difficult week, no doubt, Benny, but as we'll break down this game and we'll preview the Sporting Kansas City game away, anything that sticks out from the early part of the game with the lineup, we'll go through it, about how Steve Cherundolo and LAFC prepared for this one.
So before we break it down, I wanted to kind of summarize my thoughts of the week, or maybe even of the season a little bit, Max, so that guys can kind of know where I'm at least, right? And I know every fan is different and some more positive, some more negative, but I tend to like to think I'm pretty realistic and even keel about these things. So let's get to it. First, didn't play well against Columbus on the road. Second leg, obviously gave ourselves a big 3-0 lead and got out of there with a 2-1 loss. And so a 4-2 aggregate win. Didn't play well. I was expecting a lot more from LAFC in that game because LAFC plays at their highest level, their best form, when they are playing a little bit more defensive and can counter into space. And that was perfect for the situation that they found themselves in. Denny Bouanga could have made it 1-0 in the first 5 minutes. Didn't. That game could have gone completely different if he does. And at the end of the day, you get through. So performance not great. We're through to the quarterfinals. So let's check that box off as a positive. Going into the Austin game, not many positives. I'll be honest. Not many positives. You're playing at home. You create very little going forward. It's not like they gave up a ton defensively at all, but you give up a goal off of a set piece. It's not what you wanted. You can't do that if you're a defensive team that wants to counter, and if you're not going to create a lot of chances, you just got to be good in the defensive set pieces. And so it was, I think, disappointing for most fans to watch that game and just see a little bit of a void of opportunities and creation into the final third. And so, again, now summarizing that, through to the quarterfinals, not a great start to the league, but there's 30 more games in the regular season. We expect LAFC to find their groove and find their best form later on. And again, playoffs only start in October, and we expect LAFC to be there, and we're not expecting them to be in their best form now. So hopeful, let's say, but there's definitely a lot of question marks.
October, I got to get my Halloween costume ready. Thanks for reminding me.
It's a long ways away. It's a long season.
David saying Hugo Lloris, the player of the match versus Columbus in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, going back to your starting port there. I had the San Diego Columbus game, and I spoke with Wilfred Nancy, who LAFC eliminated, the crew. And I asked him, did he have a chance to talk to Hugo Lloris? He said, yes. I said, when are you getting called back into the French national team?
I mean, that save is up there with I remember the save in the World Cup. I was not alive, Max. I don't think you were alive either, but I think it was in the what was it, 58 or 62?
I was not alive.
Pele's header to Gordon, right? And that kind of reminded me of Hugo Lloris's save. It didn't bounce, but that was an unreal save. I couldn't believe he got to that.
Wow, you're a real historian.
Gordon Banks, right?
And I thought it crossed the line at first, but further review will show it. So we have a great goalkeeper. He is locked in. LAFC's not giving up goals. We will talk about being able to score goals. But this was a 4-3-3. This was the last run of game. I can't say that. DT paintball. Sorry. Unbelievable save from Lloris in caps. So again, we're on YouTube and we are on Facebook. So drop your comments and questions. Benny and I will be happy to answer them. So 4-3-3, Ryan Hollingshead, Aaron Long, and Kosi Tafari, Sergi, your back four. Delgado, Igor Jesus, Tillman, your midfield. Strongest midfield you could have. Bouanga, Ebobisse, and Cengiz Under getting the start, which we will talk about as well. But just overall, a different LAFC team than we saw against Columbus, where they conceded the ball. This was LAFC foot forward. They had 70% of the touches. Got a lot of shots, only 3 shots on target. And I guess that'll sort of take us to our next topic, which is LAFC in the attacking end. Because this is the crux of the issue, no, Benny? I feel good about the LAFC defense. They have a lot of talented players. Still going to get Maxime Chanot back here at some point. And Smoliakov looks pretty good as another fullback. So I feel good. The attacking end, there was effort there. Execution wasn't.
Well, there's a problem that Steve and the players need to fix. And right now, they're being a little bit too obvious with everything they do. There's nothing that a defender on the opposite team is worried about in terms of runs in behind, right? We see both wingers want the ball to their feet and the ability to take people one-on-one. None of the central midfielders are guys that incisively pass the ball behind the back line either. Whether it's Jeremy Ebobisse or Giroud, both guys that want the ball to their feet, hold up play, and then, yes, serving balls into the box would be something that they're good at. But we haven't seen too much of that either, right? We haven't seen too much overlapping play from the outside backs. I think the most that we saw it was maybe in that Seattle game with our new left back. And again, I got to remember his name, Smoliakov. Is that right?
Nailed it.
Okay, Smoliakov. And so we haven't seen the pieces fit together, really, from an attacking perspective. And you go through the attacking chances against Austin, you see it was Denny Bouanga from both sides from very tight angles, near post shot that the goalie was able to save. I mean, good shots, but right at the goalie. And the best chance of the game was Hollingshead at the end of the game where the goalie makes a good save as well. And so they're not being produced at a constant rate. And that's what's, I'm not going to say alarming, but worrying to some degree, right? And I think that's what Steve needs to figure out. The staff needs to work on, I think, maybe some more forward runs, some more overlapping runs. It can't just be Denny Bouanga, David Martinez, Nathan Ordaz, Under, creating all these chances on one-on-ones, because that's just not going to get you enough chances per game.
I've been told DTA Paintball is LAFC Soccerhead, and I want to wish him a belated happy birthday. Happy birthday, Soccerhead. We couldn't do this without you. We appreciate you there in the good times, the bad times. Quality supporters. And I should want to mention 4 subs were used. Smoliakov came in for Sergi, Ordaz for Ebobisse, Martinez for Under in the 63rd minute. Yayaboa came in for Mark Delgado in the 74th. So J. David Wallace saying there's no creativity and too pragmatic. Fatigue is not an issue, but we'll talk about that. We have played 1 game for 90 minutes out of 8. Other teams have played 8, have scored plenty. Yeah, the goals aren't there, and I think those are viable options to see, and I believe that is what LAFC is trying to do, getting those fullbacks upfield a little bit more and still working on building that midfield. They've hit a bit of a wall, and it always does go through Denny Bouanga. And I want to talk about football fatigue because Jay David says it's not an issue. After the game, Steve Cherundolo was asked, clear to see, not an excuse, but fatigue is there, very demanding schedule, but we want that. We like that. So they're approaching the schedule. I don't think you can run away from the fatigue at this. Now, there are some teams that are doing just well, like Vancouver, which they're a unicorn right now, playing all these games, but generally you're going to probably hit a bit of a wall. And Denny Bouanga, who is the Iron Man, he's going to be off. We'll talk about international duty. He's going to be off on international duty. I feel he needs maybe to recharge the batteries, but maybe he is a superhero and he just does it as they try and get some new things. But you've been in this case. It was 8 games, 26 days. Just saying that on the surface gets me a little tired. Not an excuse. That's a word from the coach, but how do you approach it?
Football fatigue is factual, right? It's not maybe it is or maybe it isn't. You get tired. You play 8 games in 4 weeks. You're going to get tired. Now, what I completely agree with Mr. David Wallace over there is it is not a reason for the lack of creativity. That has nothing to do with football fatigue. Guys aren't finding, the necessary passes or the right runs because they're tired. It's because they don't have it right now, right? The chemistry in the offensive third is right now worrying to some degree. And I do think that they're going to figure things out because, it's pretty obvious what are the things that are missing, right? You have a couple of center forwards that need service into the box. They're not getting that. That's one thing that would bring Giroux and Jeremy Bobassi, I think, into creation a little more, whether it be getting on the end of it or, you look at the goals that they started scoring. Was it against Columbus at home or was it the game? What was the season? Home? Yeah, I'm trying to remember the first goal that we talked about. There was a cross and Giroux made the run. David Martinez made the run and Hollings had scored, right? The 1-0 game. I forget which one it was, but those kind of plays we don't see often enough. And I think that's what, the center forwards need a little bit more of. And I'm going to say it in terms of Denny Bouanga and David Martinez, what they need to do more a little bit of is make off the ball runs to get in behind so that these opportunities to play balls from, Mark Delgado or Timothy Tillman are there. And if they run and they draw the defenders back, now create space for other players to play underneath, whether it's outside backs overlapping or getting in beyond or receiving balls that now the defenders on the opposite team are a little bit deeper in their box. But right now it's too stagnant and it's become very predictable for the opposite team to just stand their ground and be facing forward, and there not being much space in behind them.
That game was March 1st, the Ryan Hollingshead goal against New York City FC. Did want to, once again, leave your comments and your questions here live on YouTube and Facebook. Hey, Jesse, who did say it was a tough game this Saturday. It felt like one of those games where it was going to be a grind. LAFC, they've been the 1-0 machine getting results. They get it on the other end. And it should be mentioned that Austin, a very good defensive team coming in. The return of Ilie Sanchez, this is something that they really needed. They got it. Again, LAFC have some things to figure out, but hearing you say that there are those pieces in place. I think if we're in this conversation in let's say 3 more games, let's get into the second week of April, and we're still seeing a goal or less a game, then we can maybe, it might be a little more dire because right now they are still integrating players and they're finding other ways to beat teams. And whether they're doing it in the execution, Benny, I think the way this roster has been put together, there is a plan to A, take the pressure off of Denny Bouanga, and B, find a way to get more service to the number 9s. And I think that is there. And I want to bring up Cengiz Under, who was impressive. It's not perfect. He gets his first start, but he was very active. There was moments when I'd see him, and he would cut in from the right and off his left foot. It gave me Carlos Vela vibe.
I think it did everybody.
Yeah, I was like, oh, man, good to see that. And look, he's been here a week. He's getting settled, but he looks happy, and he looks sharp. He looks like a guy that could certainly get upfield and can get the number 9s involved. And I think Smoliakov, a true left footer, is there. I thought he did pretty well when he came in those 30 minutes getting upfield. When he struggled a bit against the Seattle. But there's growth. You see, okay, from this game to that game, a guy coming from Europe, from Ukraine, a long ways away to getting settled in. And now Cengiz Under, the same, coming from Turkey to do that as well. And those add to depth. But the vision there is to see these guys get it. How did you view what Under did? Again, it was impressive on the eyeball, but maybe if you could take us a closer look as to what he is supposed to do, where he's supposed to be to get to not only fall into line with what the coaching staff wants, but how he can make this offense start to really sparkle.
Well, those two players that you mentioned, I think, are incredibly important to some of the points that I'll make today, but also what my hope is for this team kind of to evolve into, right? Right now, the team from a offensive perspective is a one-trick pony, right? It's fast counterattacks, and it's the ability of one-on-one situations between Denny Bouanga, between David Martinez, and creating opportunities that way. Smolyakov on the left and Under, which you said perfectly, gave us all like, oh my God, is that Carlos Vela about to curl that ball? And the only difference was that it didn't finish in the net, right? Because Carlos would have 10 out of 10, that ball's hitting the net when it's curling outside the goalie's reach. But we saw not only that opportunity. First, let's talk about Under. That opportunity to receive the ball on the right side of the field, have the ability to kind of set yourself up for a left-footed shot. But the other thing that I got the impression with him was that he is capable of bringing the right back or right wing back or whoever is maybe potentially coming around him into the game. That right now we do not have. There is no one that does that, neither on the right or the left. It's David Martinez sprinting in towards the box, trying to dribble everybody, or Denny Bouanga. Nobody else gets into the action, and so it's easier for the defender. Yes, you have to deal with one very good dribbler, but there's not a secondary runner, and I think that with the way that Under plays, I'm hoping that'll allow, whether it's Hollingshead, Palencia, anybody that's playing on the right side, to kind of come around, and now there's the opportunity to cut inside and shoot or slip the ball into the right back, and now you're in a very dangerous position to be able to cross the ball to a multitude of options darting in the box. And equally on the left side, Smolyakov is a guy that I think can get up and down, and the ability to pair him with somebody, and I know, Denny Bouanga might not be that guy all the time, but the ability for him to get up and down as well on the left side and provide at least a second option that a defender has to be wary about is going to allow, whether it's Denny Bouanga or anybody on that left side, to really have more options and create more dangerous approaches in goal. So that's, I think, what Steve Trundle needs to see. How does he fit these kind of guys in the game and still not lose, the ability of your best players on the field to create on their own?
Great points. And you're just trying to flood the numbers there. And Under allows it. A defender is going to have to go with him, and that'll give space to Palencia or Hollingshead, who's ever there. And the same thing, whoever's on the left, let's say it's Denny. If he can make that run and then Smolyakov can get up there, this makes sense. Great questions and comments rolling in. Paul Maldonado, who joined us on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, we love to have you as well. And got to get the questions up there. I want more Facebook questions. We're getting a lot from YouTube. 100% right that the chemistry is worrying. No one is buying fatigue. They have the talent, but they haven't gelled just yet, which I think is something we can look forward to. I would say the fatigue with these games is an issue. The fact that they fell behind early and they were chasing, and you hope to get a goal, you didn't, that they were going. I would say I was like comforted that into the 80th, 85th, into the end, LAFC were still pouring in towards the Austin goal. And when I think fatigue, and correct me if I'm wrong, Benny, but when you're seeing guys beat it and then the ball comes through and it hits a defender or it doesn't get the cross in, it's just that last piece kind of clips. Is that a fair sign of fatigue? Because it felt like that was happening a lot.
I think the fatigue issue is a little bit more results-based, right? It's harder to chase a 1-0 deficit when you start getting tired, whether it's in the 70th, 80th, maybe even earlier, sometime in the 60th. And then it's exactly what you're saying. There's two things that happen with fatigue. One's the mental. Your brain starts to shut down. And I still have these moments where I go on runs, right? All the time. I'm pretty good at math and I can think about numbers and all these kind of things. I'm running and I've run for 20 minutes and I'm trying to break my 8-minute mile and all this stuff. And I'm like, how much faster do I need to go to finish it? And I cannot do the math. When I'm running and I'm tired, my brain just does not work as well. And I guarantee you with a lot of these players, that's one of the things that first goes. You can't see the pass right off the bat, or it takes you a longer time to see it. And then there's the physical part. You take a sloppy touch. Your shot is you're leaning back and the ball goes over the crossbar instead of you trying to hit it down. So again, like I said in the beginning, I don't think fatigue is the reason for the lack of creation in the offensive third, but I definitely think that the fatigue itself is potentially concerning the lack of results right now, right? Even in the Columbus game that we ended up, losing 2-1, but going through, it felt like if that game was another 5-10 minutes, it would have gotten dicier, right? So the fatigue is there. Again, I'm not buying it as well in terms of the chemistry and the cohesion in the front third of the field, but it's definitely, it's causing some issues in the grander scheme of results, I would say.
I want to mention something that Joe, who's always got great questions, that he brought up as well. And I don't want to put this on fatigue either, because creativity and scoring goals and creating chances have been slow. And part of it is just putting together a team. There's so many new pieces. You're replacing Matty Bogusz at the very beginning. And look, that's a very difficult job to replace. He's doing great with Cruz Azul. Maybe we see Matty later on in the CONCACAF Champions Cup if everyone advances. Max and Benny, it seems like LAFC starts slow at the beginning of the season. As a former player, I think he's talking to you, Benny. What things can players and coaches do to jumpstart positive results? Formation, player.
Hey, we were off on a flyer the first year. We started 6 games on the road, 4 wins and 2 losses, 12 points.
Well, it's different this year and last year. I think you could redo it. And last year ended very well, and they started scoring goals. But this year in particular, and new personnel, and what I said about Matty, these are factors, because you have Denny Bouanga, you have a situation at number 9, you have 2 guys battling for that, and then you have a new right winger, and then the different pieces and a whole new midfield, really. So at some point, it's got to click. It hasn't clicked, whether it was fatigue or not. They have relied on their defense, and they've gotten to where they wanted to go. And they fell behind in this game, and that wrecked them. That really did, because it chased them, and a tired team chasing is going to be an issue. So other than not falling behind, which is a good habit they've gotten in this season, other than Saturday, what can they do to jumpstart, as Joe says, some positive results or get goals?
Well, I don't know if I have an answer for that question.
It's a tough one to answer. There's no doubt about it.
I think what I can provide is a little bit of a reason, maybe, for this. And I know that, we've talked about, I think David Wallace also mentioned the fact that there's a turnover in the roster. And I think, yes, but that probably happens pretty frequently within a lot of teams in MLS as well. What I would say is, knowing Steve and comparing him a little bit to Bob, I think Steve right now is very, very focused on the defensive aspect of the team, which, by the way, is not only the easiest thing to kind of work on as a coach, is getting guys organized, knowing their roles and responsibilities from a defensive setup, but it also allows you to win games that you're not necessarily completely outplaying the other team. And to me, I totally agree with what Cherundolo is doing, and it's setting himself up for success into the future and giving him more time to potentially work out the kinks in the offensive side of the ball. And so I think that's what we're seeing. My guess is if Steve were in a room with any one person, but not the media, right? Not everybody in the world, he would say he's happy with what he's seen so far. He's happy with the defense looks solid. The team is bought into not giving up easy goals. And yes, he knows that we're lacking this, that, and the other in the offensive end. And he's got a plan for when to start introducing some things. And, obviously as fans, we don't want to see it earlier rather than later, but I think it's coming. And my guess is that he's happy with, the things that he's worked on is being seen time and time again on the weekend.
Right. I'll stand by. That's a great answer to that question. And Steve knows if this team wants to hit the tape, and he's gotten teams into finals, that defense has to be spot on. It's tried and tested, whether you're Jose Mourinho, whether you're Pep Guardiola, that is the best way to have long-term success. I should also mention Marlon, who had that injury. He is coming back. They asked Steve about that question. So that defense should be getting even better with a lot of options. Joe wanted to apologize. He said, "My bad. I forgot about season 1, Benny." But 2018
no apology necessary.
Joe, you're right. Your point was well taken. Dat one Sith saying they did well during the pre-match up with Club America. I don't think it's fatigue. Definitely a clicking issue. They did play well against a tough opponent with a festive environment. So there is that as well. We'll go. Great questions are starting to pour in. Everyone on Facebook. More Facebook questions. Thumer Alexander, he said, perfectly said. So giving you props there, Benny. I'm going to read some of these questions, but I'm going to take a little pivot here because it's something we saw in the game. The dignitaries, Mauricio Pochettino was there. Poch, Paul Pogba was in the house. And a certain producer asked me, who's this guy in the, because someone didn't know about it. I go, check the Instagram and social media handles and realize that Paul Pogba has like 8 million or 800 million, I don't know, followers. Huge soccer star. Someone asked Steve Cherundolo, hey, does that mean he's coming to LAFC? It doesn't mean he's coming to LAFC. And Steve even said, he goes, he's been out 2 years. There's a lot that Paul Pogba has to figure out. But that director's box with Will Ferrell, who's always, we love Will Ferrell. He is a great owner. He's a great president. He is hands-on, good times and bad times. And then Mauricio Pochettino was there as well, looking at Brandon Vasquez for Austin FC and Timothy Tillman, who was on the preliminary roster. Timothy's had a good season. Saturday wasn't his best day. It wasn't anyone's best day. But it's, I don't know, man. I take a little, it makes me, puts a little smile on my face on a bad day that LAFC is the place to be. We had so many World Cup winners there. Olivier Giroud, who was out of that game with Pogba and Lloris, and who knows what comes down the pike. Well, you never know. This is the home for the French national team. And the eyeballs of the man in charge of the U.S. national team, because the USA is playing here on Thursday in Nations League at SoFi.
Well, we've had some of the, like you said, what was the word you said, dignitaries, over the course of the last 7 or 8 seasons in the house quite constantly. So it's no news. But
Kylian Mbappe was there a few years ago.
I mean, it's always fun to see the players, actors, coaches that come to watch a game, and whether it be for, something that they're envisioning in their future, or whether it be for entertainment purposes, it's always great to see the people that are interested in watching LAFC play in their stadium.
Jay David also mentioning Sifu was in the house. I once saw Kevin De Bruyne was there, and he was up at the air. He was up in the field. No, he was up at the sunset deck wearing shorts and sandals. It was so disarming. It was awesome. I go, you Kevin De Bruyne? Yeah, it's good to meet you. I go, are you going to the beach? He was just chilling. It was like
maybe he was coming from the beach.
Maybe he was coming from the beach. Felix, well, let's get back. It's very cool to see that. We know we want to ask questions. Felix, I feel that we don't control the midfield aside from going up the wings, and at that point, the attack seems obvious. The midfield is, again, a work in progress. I think they've had some good moments. Saturday wasn't it, but just figuring out the responsibilities. And sometimes I see that the defense, the midfield has to drop a little bit to get things going. The backline's not a backline built to spray balls, which most teams aren't. You don't have these center backs hitting 50-yard balls side to side, but the midfield probably has to become a little more industrious. What was your view of what they were able to do against Austin?
Well, it wasn't their best game. I agree with, that comment, but I don't think the midfield is going to change much. And there's one of two things that need to happen. Either the midfield needs to start finding a little bit more creativeness with their passing, which, again, I don't think that's going to happen, because I don't think that's Mark Delgado's game. I don't think that's Timothy Tillman's game. I think their ability to get out of tight pockets and then find quick outlets to, the speedy and talented wingers is more of the game that they have. And that's kind of the goal that was led in the first game at home. Again, I'm already mixing up games, but the one that Mark Delgado sprayed it out to Denny Bouanga. Denny Bouanga put it inside to Ordaz, and Ordaz set Ebobisse up for the finish. That's kind of the game plan. I think the type of plays that you'll see from that middle three. So yeah, I do think that sometimes you feel like, man, you need a little bit more of a 10 to find those more creative passes. But I do think that with more creative runs, you'll start seeing that a little bit. So again, I think the three is what it is. It's an engine. Igor Jesus is a very, very good 6. I don't think we're missing. I saw one comment in there that potentially we're missing a guy like Ilie. I don't agree with that. I think Igor Jesus does that job really, really well. He not only is able to kind of keep the tempo of the team, but he is a pit bull, wins a lot of balls, and he's able to get out in tight situations to free up other players. And then it's the ability of Mark Delgado and Timothy Tillman to find those dangerous players. And again, after that, the one thing that I'd love to see is the flank work from our outside backs, whether it be wing backs or, right and left backs, getting up the field and creating a little bit more of a 2-on-1 to give this difficult decision for the opposing backs of whether to stay with the guy that's dribbling the ball or to the overlapping run. And I think that's what we're missing. Again, I think the midfield is fine. It is what it is. It's not a midfield that has a Lucho Acosta in there that's going to create off of as a 10.
By design. Yeah.
It's an engine room. It's an engine room that is able to do a lot defensive work and get out of tight spots offensively, and then allow their game changers to really, go score the goals.
Great stuff, Benny. Again, we're on it is Inside LAFC podcast. We are live every Monday at 12:30 Pacific time, LAFC YouTube, LAFC Facebook. We encourage you to ask your questions and comments. This is your show. You can dictate the show. I will answer every question within, I'll have to do a little editorializing along the way, but I will answer every question I possibly can. I'm going to start the preview. Someone asked about when Odin will be available. I thought he was on the bench. I see that he wasn't, but I do believe he's training. That's a wrinkle you can throw in the midfield. This is a highly regarded player who picked up an injury in preseason, eager to get after it, and can throw off opponents, I'm sure, with something different. And let's not forget that they can play with the two midfielders. You mentioned the width on the fullbacks. Maybe if they can get the fullbacks or whomever else in those wide positions, a two-man midfield would be desirable. It is an international week. We have some international absentees, although it's not overwhelming. Denny Bouanga, again, off to Africa. He has playing for Gabon, has a game at home against the Seychelles, which I hear is beautiful, but it's going to be in Gabon. I'd like to go to Gabon. And then that's on March 20th. March 23rd, they play at Kenya. Nathan Ordaz will be with El Salvador. They're playing the Houston Dynamo, and then they're playing Pachuca. So they're getting some club teams, which is great for Nathan Ordaz. I want to mention this too. Don't forget the 2026 World Cup is 48 teams. So Gabon and El Salvador have a shot, a really good shot, a shot to maybe be, I think, 6 or 7 teams from CONCACAF are going and 9 teams from Africa. So maybe LAFC players at the World Cup, which is great for a variety of reasons. I can confirm now that Olivier Giroud will be with they're playing Croatia in the quarterfinals of the Nations League. He will be honored in the second game, I believe, which will be in Paris. So for all that he has done with the French national team. David Martinez is still here. So now we know who's not here. And I talked to you before we started. You said this is a good thing. We think international absentees, you panic. And we'll preview the game here shortly. But this is a good thing, not only for those players to maybe decompress, but to see how you can live without them, at least for this week.
Yeah. I think if you're Steve Cherundolo, it's a very interesting week. You're, losing your best player, your superstar, in Denny Bouanga. And I would see it as an incredibly positive challenge in a perfect moment, because bad result at home against Austin. Now you're going on the road. You're playing a team in Sporting Kansas City that hasn't had a good start to the season. They have given up goals. And I think that it could provide a really good matchup for Steve to start introducing some of these ideas, hopefully in the offensive end as well. I think that it's, in terms of the player's mindset, it's almost like you look at Inter Miami and the way that they play when Messi is not playing. And they almost all step up a level, right? It's like their record last year without Messi, I think it was like 9 wins out of 11 without Messi, something crazy like that. And so can LAFC kind of take a page out of their book and be like, okay, we don't have Bouanga right now, but how do we create chances? It's not going to be giving the ball to, maybe David Martinez is one guy that can do it, but whoever's playing on the left side, maybe they put David Martinez on the left and Under on the right, whatever, but you're going to need more than just one guy to take over a game. And maybe that means now we got a little bit more flank play from the outside backs. Maybe you get more 2-on-1s. Maybe you get more creation closer to the goal. Maybe you get more services into the box. I think that it's an exceptionally perfectly timed game for what we've seen lacking in the attacking half for LAFC, for them to maybe see a little bit extra and try some new things and hopefully get some new things. And out of it, if you get a win and get some goals, you get a lot of confidence going into the next game once you get those players back.
Interesting as we now begin the preview. Jesse's saying we need Benny back in the field, on the field. Do you have your booth?
You'll see me back on the field if you turn on YouTube on Wednesday. I'll be playing for the Des Moines Menace. I don't have a spot on the LAFC midfield anymore, unfortunately.
We have someone in our legal team who I brought that up about the Des Moines Menace, and they said, "Has Benny ever been to Iowa?" And I go, "I don't think so," because the Iowa folks, they're getting into it, but they want some connections, and I think Sasha said he visited. So it's you, Dax McCarty, Sasha Kleshin, and this game is here. And now you have to not only be fit and get the team, but you have to answer to the folks from Iowa, the great state of Iowa, about your connections to the place.
I want to say that I have driven through Iowa before. I don't know if I've ever played a game in Iowa.
Get in your car and go.
Yeah, I've driven through there. I think we've had some preseason games with SKC2 actually when I was the coach. I'm pretty sure we drove through those areas. I think I've been through Des Moines. I don't think I've ever played a game in Iowa, but if we win this game against SKC2 on Wednesday, hopefully we get a home game and I'll be playing in Iowa in 2 weeks from now.
So tune in to the U.S. Open Cup Wednesday. You'll see Benny in action. We will be hoping that he gets the result and stays 100% healthy. Let's look ahead. Again, Facebook coming in through. By the way, I'm talking about the Facebook folks, but I love YouTube. YouTube is my number one social media outlet. I love it. That's why I love doing this podcast with you on YouTube, because YouTube works. And get the numbers. If you haven't subscribed to LAFC, YouTube, or Facebook, I'm sure you have, but tell your friends. Let's get it going so we can continue to provide excellent programming. Full week to prepare for Sporting Kansas City. You mentioned the players that aren't available, and immediately we can kind of figure out what the lineup's going to look like. But let's talk about the full week, because this is the first time Steve Cherundolo, who likes to roll up his sleeves and coach, as most coaches do, and his staff get a chance to prepare for a game without 2 games and travel to frigid Denver or challenging Columbus. Players can get a rest too. So tell us about what, as a player or as a coach, what they look forward to when you see a full week where you get to put in your agenda.
Well, I think the biggest difference between having a full week and what they've had in these first 4 weeks of the season is they've had to kind of stick to whatever game plan they came up with in preseason. And it's very hard. You play a game on Saturday or Sunday, you have a regen day, you get back in on Monday, Tuesday, maybe you have a game, or maybe you have a match day -1 where you're working on set pieces. And so you have 48 hours in between games. Really, you don't work out the kinks. You kind of just, okay, well, this was good. Let's just keep it going. Okay, maybe we change or formation, but for the most part, the ideas are the same. A full week allows you to really tap into, okay, what didn't work against Austin? What are the things we need to fix? And you can work on, maybe today's a day off, but starting tomorrow, you got 4 days to build up into match day. And so you're starting to work on those things. As a coaching staff, you're getting together Sunday, Monday, working on, okay, these are the things that we need to improve on. These are the things individuals need to see so that we can kind of have a better idea of, hopefully what to do in the attack. How do we create overloads? How do we create numbers advantages? What kind of balls do we want? What kind of service we want into the box? And my hope is, and I would guess, is that the staff is fully, applying themselves this week to see some of the things that haven't, gone the way that they would have hoped from a natural perspective. And let's work on these things. Let's make sure we see some of these things in this upcoming week, and we have enough days to start working on it with the players.
I'm sure they're very excited about that. We're in the stretch run here, so if you have a question, answer it now. Forever hold your peace. We're going to go through that really quickly a couple questions for Benny, who was on the staff there at Sporting Kansas City for LAFC 2. We can get an idea of what this team is going to look like with the international absentees. And the question is, this isn't a very good Sporting team. Benny watches all the games, so he'll give you an honest assessment here. We can it's going to be your strong back four. It's probably going to be that 3-man midfield that we've talked about. And my guess, the front three, Abobasi, Under, and Martinez, you would think. So with that, now the big question is, I think we can trust the LAFC defense. Can this group, the week of prep, get the goals?
I think they'll have the opportunities. I think we'll see more chance creation in this game than we've probably seen in any of the other games. And look, you can just go back to this last game that Sporting Kansas City played against Minnesota. Minnesota played a defensive shape just like they did against LAFC, and they were able to create numerous chances going forward throughout the game, right? And so you think about the game that Minnesota played against LAFC, they weren't able to create as much against LAFC as they did against Sporting. And I think LAFC will play a similar way where they do want to concede some possession. I think Sporting is the highest possession team in the league right now, like 58 or 59%, which bodes well for how LAFC wants to play. And then LAFC has to connect passes through the middle of the field, break the initial press, and go and attack into space. And I hope that from the LAFC perspective, we see numbers getting forward, and it's not just one-on-ones on either side. And we have a little bit more of ambition going from the outside backs from either side.
So Sporting's going to want the ball, and Steve Cherundolo will bring it, and we're going to ready
Sporting's
to set
going to have
traps.
the ball. I would put money on it that Sporting will have more possession than LAFC in this game.
Well, it seems like a positive matchup. Micah mentioning, Max, I have to apologize. Underestimated Columbus. Thought it would be an easy win. Yeah, Columbus is very good, but you don't have to apologize. It's a team effort here, Micah. Some questions about Griezmann from Gomez. Grizzy to LAFC maybe earlier. His team, Atletico Madrid, is out of the Champions League, and Atletico Madrid, and we don't know anything about it, but I don't think it would happen in this window, unless I'm wrong. But if it is going to happen, the summertime seems like the place, and they would have to find a place to put him here as well, because they have their third DP in Under for now. Under's contract goes for the summer. Summer's going to be very exciting, so we don't know. We know for fact LAFC, as Benny, we've seen as a player and as someone from afar, that whatever LAFC does, it's going to be, they're going to look to fix some things if they need fixing in that summertime, and it could be small, it could be big.
I'll add this to the fans. I've always felt this way, right? It is extremely rare. And as soon as I start saying this, I think of a situation where it's the exception to this rule, but it is extremely rare when something isn't clicking on a team for whatever reason, right? And I think we can all agree that right now, offensively, it's not clicking the LAFC way, that you bring one player and stick him in that, and all of a sudden it starts working. It doesn't work that way, right? And again, the exception to the rule was Nico Ladero with Seattle Sounders, 10 years ago.
Good shout.
He came in and Seattle was struggling. They ended up winning, the whole league. But having said that, I think LAFC need to figure out with the pieces that they have how to better look in the attacking half. And then sure, if Griezmann comes into a team that's starting to roll in the summer, and he's one of the highest quality players that you can find in that part of the field, of course he's going to be dynamic. But I think we should be more worried about focusing on the pieces that we have and making that stuff work than figuring out who we need to bring in to come in and save us.
One comment, we'll need to keep Dan Jovic in check. That'll be a good one. If LAFC gives up a goal here, but they score more goals, I think that's still good business. But that was very well said, Benny. I think we'll put an end to the show right there. This team, give them time. They're still very new. They're playing together in many cases for the first time or second time or first few times. Let's see them. Let's give them the time. The good news is they've gotten through to the quarterfinals of the Champions Cup, and they can easily find their way to the top of the West. And by the way, take a look at the Western Conference standings. It's Vancouver, St. Louis. It's going to change. It's a weird start to the season, LAFC included.
Don't knock on Vancouver. They're
awesome.
I love them.
I love watching them play.
They're not going to finish in one, maybe, but I think they're pretty special.
David saying, Max, any word about more bobblehead giveaways? Yeah, they're going to have the Benny bobblehead giveaway coming up in 2026. Not confirmed. Good stuff, Benny. We will be back next Monday, 12:30 Pacific time, to break down Sporting Kansas City and get ready for the next run at home for LAFC, including CCC. We'll see you then, my friend.